over to you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having me this afternoon. It's lovely to join you. Nice to see a few friendly faces as well as make lots of new connections. I'm Caroline Saunders. I run 4C Marketing, and I'm a marketing services consultant. So from writing a single blog post for your business or your LinkedIn profile through to being an outsourced marketing manager, looking after all your marketing requirements, I make your marketing happen through marketing, PR, and social media. So today we're going to talk about LinkedIn. It's really interesting to see we've got a really broad selection of experience here, with people really not actively using LinkedIn at all and others using it very actively. It is National Learning at Work Week, so at least we'll all hopefully be learning something from today, even though clearly for some of you, perhaps this will be a refresh. For others, it would all be new news. We should have time for Q&As at the end. So if any of you would like to look at some areas such as measurement in more detail, we can pick that up then. Equally, I'm very happy to have one-to-ones with anyone afterwards to look at your particular area and discuss things further. So hopefully we'll have a broad overview, which will have some tips for everybody, but we can also address more specific things at another occasion. So I'm just going to share my screen and then we'll get started. So it was interesting. One of the first questions someone said was about why should I be using LinkedIn at all? So I thought actually this might come up. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was really why you should be using LinkedIn at all or considering it for your business. The first thing to me that's really important is scale. So LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network. And that word is very important because, as Matthew describes, there's social media and there's LinkedIn. And they are all quite different and function in different ways. LinkedIn is very much a professional network. It has nearly 740 million members in more than 200 countries and territories worldwide. It's very well used in the UK. So most people you know will have a profile, even if they're not necessarily actively using it. LinkedIn members interact with pages, so that means company pages, more than 1 billion times per month. So as you may well know, on LinkedIn, you have what's your personal profile, and you can also have a company page. And members are interacting with pages, which are of a newer phenomenon for LinkedIn. Originally, there was only profiles and company pages were introduced afterwards, but they are being more and more used by this massive network, which is available to you. Secondly, it's growing. So LinkedIn is among the world's top 10 fastest growing brands. It saw a 55% year-on-year increase in conversations among connections last year. In March 2019 to 2020. And the data suggests that during lockdown and the COVID impact last year, if anything, engagement increased even more and dwell time on the platform. It's rated as the #1 most trusted social media platform by Business Insider. Now, clearly, we can all make up a statistic for something, but I think there is an element that LinkedIn is different in terms of it is more professional and therefore it is more trusted if you were looking for, say, a professional recommendation. If you wanted a professional recommendation for, say, a solicitor to help you sell your business, you could ask Facebook, but you'd be perhaps more trusting of the answers you got if you asked LinkedIn. So it's big and it's growing. And lastly, really is about credibility. So obviously, lots of brands do lots of research about things like this. And this is just one Nielsen study I've picked out, where it says brands were perceived to be more professional, more intelligent, higher quality, and more respectable when their advert, in this case, was seen on LinkedIn. So associating your brand with LinkedIn not only gets you to a big audience, a growing audience, but also one that is a very credible audience. So hopefully that's reminded you why it should be worth investing your time in LinkedIn. So if you're going to invest your time in it, what are you going to do with that precious time? So the key things I'm going to cover today is your profile, your content, your connections, and then groups. Now, we will very much focus more on the first two, really, and a little less on the others, which we can pick up in more detail at another time. But profiles and content to me are really the most important part of, if you take anything away from today, what you should go and do. So we'll focus on those first. So starting with your profile matters. Now, I really hope Matthew doesn't mind that I'm using him as an example, highlighting some of the brilliant things he's done on his profile, as well as some areas of opportunities. It's because I really believe that looking at practical examples is really beneficial. Rather than me just telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing, looking at an example can really help. Your profile really matters for search and first impressions. I'd like to invite you to think about LinkedIn as another version of Google. So I might look into Google and say, I need to find a solicitor in Lymington, but I also might go into LinkedIn search to look for a solicitor in Lymington. So a lot of the things you think about Google search will apply to LinkedIn. So then if someone finds you, you want to make sure you make a really good first impression. Just as you wouldn't turn up today with things in the background in your pajamas, you wouldn't go along to LinkedIn Live half cut, I'm sure. Your first impression really matters, and that's going to make the difference between someone picking up the phone or getting in touch or taking whatever action you want them to take once they've seen your profile. And I think most people don't realise how much detail and opportunity there is in your profile, and I'm going to talk you through the various sections now. So first up, cover image and profile photo. These are opportunities where you need branded, relevant, up-to-date and professional photography. No wedding photos, please, unless you are a wedding planner. No photos in the pub, please, unless you really are an events director. So you can see here, Matthew's chosen a professional headshot and also an image which is related to his yachting business. Secondly, your headline. Now you have up to 220 characters to talk about you and your businesses and to keyword optimize them. So this is an opportunity for Matthew here. He's written that he is into growing businesses in the New Forest. Now that's absolutely correct. But if someone typed in, I'm looking for networking in the New Forest, they wouldn't find Matthew. So there's an opportunity there to add words like networking, add words like hospitality that would be relevant. So the 220 characters, an opportunity to use all of them and maximize the value of them. Because when someone does that search for solicitors in Lymington, that's what they want to see. Next, just services. Now, this is a relatively new section that's been introduced by LinkedIn, and Matthew obviously isn't aware of this or hasn't taken the opportunity because there are none listed on his profile. You can add up to 10 services from a predefined by LinkedIn list. Now, for some people, unfortunately, actually you won't find any services that are suitable for your business. But for example, in my business, I've got listed copywriting, brand strategy, brand communications. There are plenty of opportunities. And it shows people very clearly when they land on your profile what services you provide. Next, your about section. The about section has changed over the years, and currently you have 2,600 characters to write accurate, interesting, readable, keyword optimized copy about you and your businesses. Remember here, most of the reason we're using LinkedIn is to advertise, to sell, to market us and our businesses. So your about section is an opportunity to talk a bit about your career history, what makes you you, your experience, and to talk about your business as well. You can include things like testimonials. You can include things like bullet points and emojis and all sorts of things to try and make it interesting and engaging. But most importantly, you've got 2,000 characters, more than that, to use those keywords and make sure you get featured. Having a couple of phrases or a couple of paragraphs is a great start, but to really make the most of the opportunity, you need to write to the margins of 2,600 characters. You've then got here a featured section, which is all about showcasing your talent. So you'll see here, for example, Matthew's chosen, he's got a link to the hotel and a link to the yachting. So very clearly showing his two businesses, really nice, attractive picture. Obviously, this one hasn't come up, but you can immediately see what he does and you'd be interested to click on the link to find out more. In the featured section, you can choose to put website links, you can choose to put images, you can choose to pin some particular posts that were interesting that you wrote or LinkedIn articles that you wrote. Pretty much anything and everything you can put in there. And it's a great opportunity to highlight, some key things about your business and get people interested early on. Remember, people have just landed on your profile, so we really want to capture their attention quickly. Moving down the profile, the next thing you'll see is the person's activity. Now, clearly, it's good to see some activity there that people are actually commenting and interacting on other things. If you don't, it's just blank. And it's a bit like meeting someone in the shop and they say, how are you today? And they ignore you. You want to see that people are actively engaged in the community. Next, moving down your experience. In your current experience section, you can have up to 2,000 characters per role. So again, a great opportunity to talk more about, particularly in this case, your business and your current role. using accurate, interesting, readable text with keywords in them. And you can include more than one role. So you can see, for example, here, Matthew has two current experiences running alongside. That's absolutely fine. LinkedIn is totally down with portfolio careers. You can relatively have as many current experiences as you want. So if you work with different customers or have different businesses, you don't have to choose, you can profile both. The only thing you have to think about is the priority order. So one has to come first. So you want to make sure that ultimately is your priority for your business. For example, Serena, where you have bump and glide and you're trying to talk to women, but also employers, you could list them as effectively separate experiences, allowing you to talk much more about kind of directly to mums in one situation and one talking more to the corporate audience. So you can use that to your advantage if your business has quite different audiences or if you have more than one business. Next, previous experience. If it's relevant, then by all means include it and think about those keywords. If you now run a call center consultancy and you've previously been a call center manager, then clearly that's really important to talk about because people want to see that gives you credibility for your current role. If you flipped careers and you used to run a nursery and now you are a solicitor, then perhaps it's not going to be as relevant. So I wouldn't suggest that you have to fill 2,000 characters for every single role you've ever had. It's think about what's going to help you market your business. I would encourage you to at least have a simple sentence or two for each entry, just so that it shows you kind of almost not forgotten to complete it, that you've made some summary of what you did there. Moving down, then you've got education. For most of us, education was quite a while ago, but it's still important to make sure it's relevant, accurate, and up to date. Now, nobody needs to know what GCSEs you've got or O-levels or whatever they might have been. We don't need that level of detail. But you see here, it looks great on Matthew's profile that he's got the actual universities properly listed, so the picture of the university actually comes up. It looks very professional. Then moving down to licenses and certifications. For some businesses, this is much more relevant than others, but if you land on someone's profile and they've got a license, but it says it's already expired, that immediately makes you start to think, well, are they certified for it anymore? Why have they not updated it? So making sure that they're relevant and up to date is really important. Skills and endorsements. Skills is a really interesting area where many people don't realise that you can reorder your own skills. So usually skills are listed in the amount of people that have authorised you for something to say, yes, Matthew is really good at leadership. But actually, you might not want to be very known for leadership, Matthew. Matthew, you might want to be known for hospitality. So you can actually physically go in and reorder your skills and choose whichever top 3 you want to be most known for. Typically, skills tend to reflect our past. They tend to be people that have worked for this historically and go, oh, this person was really good at such and such. But if actually your career's changed slightly, that's not what you want people to see going forward. And when people search on LinkedIn, LinkedIn does look directly at skills to see where they should put you on search. So it's really important to make sure that you've got the top 3 that you want. And you can also add up to 50 skills. So think about all the keywords that you could cover if you had up to 50 skills listed. You can also take skills quizzes. I took an SEO one the other day, which gives you an endorsement from LinkedIn. And again, will make them prioritize you in search results if someone's looking for SEO services. Lastly, recommendations. We all know that recommendations and reviews are the lifeblood of any successful business. I'm a firm believer in give, ask, and you shall receive. So I'd strongly encourage you to give recommendations where you possibly can, and also then ask for recommendations. So for example, if someone has recently come and stayed, thankfully, hooray, at the hotel, Matthew Way, ask them to give a recommendation at the time so it's up to date. You can see here that Matthew's got some recommendations, but the last one was over a year ago. Now, anything may have changed in the past year. Well, we all know Matthew's still brilliant at his job. If you saw a recommendation that was there from a month ago, that would be more persuasive than one that was older. I encourage you to make it as easy as possible for people to recommend you. So one thing I do is if at the end of a project, someone, or I send off a blog post and someone comes back and emails me and they say, love it, Caroline, you've just so hit the mark, brilliant job. I would go straight into LinkedIn. I would go to ask for a recommendation. I would cut and paste their words into the message and say, dear such and such, thank you for your lovely email. This is what you said. Could you please add it as a LinkedIn recommendation for me? So literally all they've got to do is cut and paste it right in front of them. You're making it as easy as possible for them to recommend you, making it timely and making it simple. So we've done a whistle-stop tour through the epic opportunities available on your profile. But most people often say to me, well, what should I post on LinkedIn? Why should I post on it? How often? Content is where a lot of people get stuck. Equally, as Heidi says, I feel like I put loads of content on there, but I'm not sure if it works. So I'm going to talk you through the kind of 5 whys or 4 and a H about content. So starting with what content should I post? Now, we could do a whole 20 minutes on what to post. So I've just got really some suggestions and I'm happy to pick up on this more from other people. What to post? Do post images. We all know that images are more engaging as we're scrolling down a screen. We might stop on the image that captures our attention. Do post videos. Some people really love to listen to videos. Some people don't. By posting a mixture of posts between some videos, some images, some text only, you're appealing to all the different parts of your audience. If you only ever post the videos, though statistically they might be very engaging, if there's people that just don't have time to listen to videos, you're going to miss their connection. So try and mix up videos, images and text. Do make the effort. What I mean is, do make the effort to post as regularly as you can, and we'll talk about how often going forwards. But also this is about making the effort in terms of, if you use, say, a social media scheduler, where you just post one post to all your platforms, then you're not really making as much effort. LinkedIn rewards you by the more effort you make. So if you make the effort to write a longer post, if you make the effort to write a post that engages people, if you make the effort to actually post directly into LinkedIn rather than using a scheduler with a link shortener, it rewards your efforts by showing it to more people. So the more effort you put in, the more LinkedIn is going to give you back. Do go native. So what I mean is, if you're posting a link, try and post directly into LinkedIn if you can. It means you can tag people. It means you can links look differently because LinkedIn has shortened it for you rather than using a scheduler like Hootsuite. And do tag other people. Sorry, do use hashtags, 2 to 4 hashtags per post, not hundreds. It's just seen as spammy. 2 to 4 is a really good place to start. And LinkedIn have hashtag suggestions, as well as you can obviously use your own. And do tag other people. So by actively using the @ and tagging someone, they're immediately told that they're in that comment, and then they're more likely to interact with it. If you just use their name, they won't necessarily see the post. So do post comments and interact with others. This isn't just about your own post, it's about being part of the community, making the effort to comment and interact with other people's posts as well. Do be human and personal, but keep it professional. Perhaps we'll talk about that in the Q&A. That balance in LinkedIn has really shifted over the past 12 months, 24 months. I think it's coming back round to being more professional. I will always encourage you to keep it as professional as possible. Do write longer posts. So I wouldn't suggest you keep it really short and snappy all the time, but make sure those first few lines capture people's attention, because in mobile, they're only going to see the first probably 2 lines of your post to decide if they want to read more. Do share your blog posts. If you put something, a blog on your website, make sure you post a link to it on LinkedIn, talk about why people should read it. Celebrate your business milestones. That could be new customers, it could be new openings, could be business birthdays, all those sorts of things. You'll find the LinkedIn community can be really supportive. And do publish feedback. So if you've got a customer testimony you're really proud of, then that's a great thing to share with the audience. You'll be surprised how many people say, you know, kind of well done and are encouraging and supportive. Do ask questions and ask for advice. LinkedIn is a great place to ask for advice. It could be you're looking to outsource your administration. Can someone recommend someone? Those kind of things. Lots of people want to help, so you'll get a lot of comments on. And do also give helpful advice. If you've just discovered Trello and think it's the best app since sliced bread, then tell people about it, because other people may benefit from that too. And do promote and review events. As Heidi well knows, LinkedIn is a good place to promote and your events and also review them afterwards to say, you know, how well it went. When to post. Now, there's lots of research that goes on about this. This is a recent one came out this week from Sprout Social. And they say that Tuesday to Thursday between 9 AM and 12 PM is the best time to post on LinkedIn. So it does tend to seem to be you get more engagement in the mornings. Also, being a professional platform, you tend to get more engagement Monday to Friday and at least during working hours. Having said that, every business is different. For example, with one of my clients, we have a global audience. So we post quite early at 8 o'clock in the morning because we want to make sure we're reaching some of the Asia audience as well as the UK audience. In fact, for example, going back to your pregnant mums that may well be on LinkedIn, but they'll probably be on it at different times. So have a think about your particular audience. And if you're not sure, then start with Tuesday to Thursday, 9 till 12. In terms of how often, I think this is a real kind of relief sometimes for people. HubSpot research has shown that actually you don't want to publish more than 5 times a week on LinkedIn. So whereas Facebook and Twitter, particularly Twitter, you might want to throw everything at it 5 times a day, actually you can take a deep breath with LinkedIn, because the more you post, actually the less engagement you'll get overall. So HubSpot research suggests sharing anything between 2 to 5 posts per week. So it's not something that you need to do every day. And if anything, I find it almost hard to not share things and not do lots of things on LinkedIn, but to think which are really going to have the biggest impacts and make sure I use it strategically rather than just sharing everything that you might do on Twitter. Right, moving on, let's do how to post. So you can post directly, literally typing into LinkedIn or using a scheduling tool like Hootsuite and Buffer. They can be quite time saving and cost productive, but they do have downsides. Where to post? Obviously, there's personal profiles, company pages, or groups. You can post in all of them. I encourage you to generally, your personal profile will always have the biggest reach. So you will probably have thousands of connections, but you might only have a few hundred followers on your company page. So I'd always prioritize your personal profile to post from, and think also strategically. So for example, with my company page, I might post more general marketing advice, whereas on my personal profile, I might talk about a particular meeting I had or a one-to-one that was really interesting. So think about what's the right kind of audience. And most importantly, don't forget the why. That's the thing about what's the point of each post? What are you trying to achieve? It could be brand building, could be news sharing, question asking. There's all sorts of reasons you might be posting. Just think about, what am I trying to achieve with this? What's the point I'm doing? Moving on to connections, we'll just touch briefly on this. Generally, the bigger your network, the better. Like any form of marketing, it's not just who's in the room, but it's who they know as well. People often ask me, should I say yes to every connection request that I get? My question to me is always kind of, why not? So if you could think of a good reason, like you live in India, I don't want to do any research, work in India, then fine, there's a reason not to. But if it's a fellow marketeer that works up in Newcastle, well, they may have some interesting content I can learn from too. So always just ask yourself, why not? Generally, the bigger the better. If you're connecting with someone, always personalize your connection requests. So I'm sure we'll get lots of requests tonight saying it was lovely to meet you at LinkedIn, at the New Forest Business Hour today. Always personalize that with a message. It's really worthwhile, makes a real difference, and explain your connection and why you want to connect. Do beware of mobile, because if you try and connect on your mobile app, it doesn't give you the opportunity to personalize it with a note. So it's easy to fall foul of that, and then you can't kind of get it back to then personalize your request. And if you're not sure, following someone is a really good way where you can see their content, but you've not actually sent them a connection request. So someone you'd like to be connected to, but you're not sure, you can follow them to begin with, and quite often they'll follow you back, and then you can say, oh, now we're following each other, it would be useful to connect. And do aim for 500 plus connections. There was some research a while ago that said that LinkedIn prefer people that have more connections, because it shows you're making more effort into the community, and then therefore LinkedIn are more likely to show your post to other people. And that's the thing about, should I accept every connection request? I would say, ask yourself, why not? The role of groups, there's 2 key roles of groups on LinkedIn as they are at the moment. The first thing is you can choose to join other groups. You can search and find relevant groups to your industry, to your area, to your profession. Also consider what your target audience do. So that might be a useful part. If you're looking to connect with auditors, then you might want to join an auditors group just to listen to some of the language and how they communicate with each other. If you do join, always listen first to what's going on and being discussed, and observe the rules. If they say don't post your blog post here, then please don't, otherwise you will find yourself removed. And again, these are great places to ask for advice or give recommendations where other people are asking for advice, rather than advertising your own personal services. You can also create your own groups on LinkedIn, just as you can on Facebook and other platforms. this can be really effective, but also hugely time consuming. You've really got to find a niche and commit to it. So for example, say Heidi might look at menopause in the workplace. It's really a big topic. If there isn't a group, she might want to create her own group to talk about menopause in the workplace, and obviously subtly some of the HR implications of that and the suppliers that can help. But you've really got to commit time to building it. So thinking that there is a real opportunity. Just setting up another networking in Hampshire type group and then not putting any into it won't get you anything out of it. So finding out more, there's a few suggestions here. There's a gentleman called John Esperon who literally lives his life on LinkedIn, does lots of research on his own posts and provides lots of free advice. So it's a good person to follow. I also recommend things like Social Media Today and HubSpot. Again, they do quite a lot of research or publish other people's research on what's going on. LinkedIn changes just like other social media platforms. So trying to keep up to date with those changes is really useful. So my 3 top tips, just about in my 20 minutes, is do make the most of what's available and complete your profile. Think of all those characters, all that text you've got to talk about how brilliant your business is. Do think about keywords and search to maximise the value of your content. If you are a solicitor in Lymington, make sure you've actually got those words written in your profile. And do get involved. So whether it's from connecting with other people, to posting, to groups and more, the more you get involved with LinkedIn, I think the more you'll get out of it. Having said that, of course, it can be a timing drain. So do set yourself some limits. But the more you involve and get engaged, the more you'll get out of it. Okay.
Fantastic. Thanks, Caroline. And excellent presentation. I don't know who that guy was you were talking about for the first 10 minutes, but it looked very interesting. So over to everyone else. I can't see any questions in the chat, but I think everyone was intently following. But Phil's in there first with a question. Do use your raise hand either physically at the screen, although I'm over 2 screens, or please put a question in the chat or raise your hand virtually on the system.
Brilliant. Thank you. That was really interesting. Thanks ever so much for that. You mentioned the business page. I don't know if I have a business page. I have the page with my name on, and as the founder of Tech Wizard, and basically that's what I do. But is there a specific place for a business page? And if so, where do you find it?
So you create one yourself. So you have a personal profile, which it sounds like you have, Phil, but you can also have a company page. So that would be a Tech Wizard page, which is a bit like a mini version of your website, but it's on LinkedIn. And it's a very simple process to create a company page. If you follow the steps on LinkedIn, so if you go to help, then it'll have create a company page is what they're officially called. Sometimes people call them business pages and get confused, but they are called company pages. It's a very simple process. They look quite similar to a personal profile in terms of you have a header image, a profile, a headline, you have an about section, and you can post from them and post videos and things. So they are similar to personal profiles, but they are different because it is a company page. So you would then be listed as an employee of Tech Wizard, for example. And obviously, if you had any other employees, then you can start to create a community with them. I would, one of the things I encourage people is to set up a company page if you don't, because if you don't have one, when you look at your personal profile, next to Tech Wizard in your current experience, you've probably got a funny grey box. It's basically just a generic LinkedIn says, I have no idea what this company is, so you just get a grey box. Whereas if you set up a company page, you won't get a grey box, you get your profile image, whatever you've chosen for the company page. So to me, it immediately makes your personal profile look more professional. So I encourage people to set one up, even if they don't actually actively post from it, which obviously would be the gold standard and the gold star. But even just setting one up can help your personal profile look better, and it can also help you get found in search. Because if someone said, "Oh, I met this guy from Tech Wizard, he's brilliant," obviously if someone goes in to search for Tech Wizard because they didn't actually know your name, then they would still find Tech Wizard, for example.
Sure. All right, Caroline, thank you. Appreciate it.
But everyone knows Phil at Tech Wizard, so you'll be safe, Phil. Thank you. Any other hands? So while here we go, Gillian, over to you.
Yeah, just a quick one following on from Phil and what you said about, so if you look in the education or the skills section, so for example, I've got, because I'm so old, that it goes way back, that a lot of the companies that I either worked for or what I did they don't exist anymore. So now, you know, that block that's now this grey block, it looks like I never worked for a company, or even my school doesn't exist anymore, and you know, my diploma that I did and all that. So there's no way of fixing that.
Yeah, unfortunately there isn't. As you say, I mean, I have a similar, the company that I started working for was RHM Foods, which then bought by Premier Foods, which has changed. You can, if you know where it's moved to, so like Premier Foods still exists, I could list it as Premier Foods and then write when it was known as RHM in the text, so you could do it that way. Or unfortunately you have to live with the grey box and just explain using the text that, you know, the company previously was known as something like that. But yeah, unfortunately there's no way around that one.
Okay.
Of course, Gillian doesn't have to list them. So what's your thought on that? The sort of number of experiences that, I mean, people are only really interested to know what you're doing now, but on the other hand, this may be a way somebody gets in contact with you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say generally come back to that thing about if it's relevant to what you do now. So, you know, if you used to work at a promotions company and you still work at a different promotions company, it's demonstrating your promotions company experience. If it was when you worked as a chef, well, then that's probably not going to be that useful. So I would think about whether you think it's relevant to the audience or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. And Tim's asking, can you expand on what you said about reach? How do you get posts seen by more people and for longer?
Yeah, so I'm really glad you brought that up, Tim, because it's something I wanted to talk about, the brilliant algorithm word. So the lovely algorithm. Now, clearly, nobody really knows how the LinkedIn algorithm works, just like we don't know how any of the algorithm works. But from what we're aware of and what they tell us, basically, LinkedIn make a judgment, or the algorithm does, on whether they think your post is interesting and useful or not. And they decide who they share it to. So you can't just assume that because you've done a post, all your connections will see it. They would only see it if they actively went on your profile and went on your recent post and saw it. So whether you appear in a newsfeed, just like other social media engines, is down to their algorithm. And what they will prioritize is people that have lots of connections, that connect a lot, that post a lot, because they want to reward people that are making the effort. And it's something that's hard with clients when they say, well, I posted a couple of times on LinkedIn and I didn't get a response. Well, probably because nobody actually saw your post, because you're not making the efforts. In the nicest possible way, LinkedIn, just like Google, anyone else, they want to provide content which is interesting to people, that people are engaging with. So they're not going to show your one post to loads of people if they don't think it's worthwhile. So in terms of expanding your reach, the more people you can get to interact with your post, the better. So that's why you'll get people asking a lot of questions and things like that, because that will obviously often generate engagement. There was a trick that went around a while ago, which was if you want to post a link to something, like a link to an article you read on the Times, which was interesting, don't post the link in your post, post it in a comment. And the idea behind this was basically to trick the algorithm, as in, well, someone's commented on this post, so it's really interesting, so we'll show it to other people. And also LinkedIn don't really want you to take people off LinkedIn by following a link to somewhere else. So you can see the logic behind it, but it's a bit like the whole black hat SEO. You're not thinking about your audience, and the audience go, well, I'm reading your post and you're talking about this link, and now I can't find a link because now I've got to open it to go to the comment to find the link. So I'm a firm believer in we shouldn't try and trick people. We should just be providing good quality content. And actually, if it's good quality content, even if people follow the link, but if they find it useful and they're going to like it and they're going to comment or share it, LinkedIn will value that much more highly than whether you happen to put a comment on with the link. So I'd always prioritize your audience, prioritize engagement, and that's where if you interact with other people's, that's better. The other thing you need to be aware of is timing. So for example, LinkedIn will show you posts, I don't know if you've ever found this, like from a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and you suddenly go, well, hang on a sec, why is it showing this to me now? It's because over time, the algorithm builds. So if I post something now, not many people might look at it now because it's nearly 5 o'clock in the evening, but tomorrow morning, some people might start to interact with it. And then if someone that's got loads of followers comments on it, then suddenly LinkedIn will go, okay, so this is being interesting and shared, I'll need to pass it on. So it's something to be aware of, that LinkedIn, you find impressions build over time. And that's why, although it's good for things like events, don't forget people will sometimes see it a week after the event. You can't control exactly when things are seen. And that's why it can be more useful for some of the brand building type activities that are less time sensitive.
Yeah, so Tim comments that interaction is key, and asking about external links. I'm just going to share mine because, again, as I have been made a model, I just put this small message up the other day, and which is just me being me, but you can see the numbers down here and 82 comments and so on, but I did put an external link in. So Tim's question is, does that help or not? And my only other point on this was there were 82 comments, and what I tried to do was respond to every single one of those comments.
Yeah,
and that seems
really good way of doing it.
That seems to have given more visibility.
Yeah. So having an external link in generally, if anything, would be seen as a bad thing because you're taking people away from LinkedIn because you're asking people to go and do something else. But that post would have done really well because of the comments and engagement it got, because of so many people saying, we're so happy for you, Matthew. The LinkedIn community is generally very supportive and professional. So all those messages saying, well done, Matthew, we're so pleased for you. That's what will have got it lots of views. And as you say, you then going to actually thank each people then continues all the engagement over time. So it's always worth doing that, as well as it just being kind and polite. It also helps the algorithm too.
And two follow-up points have been made. One is we were always told to put external links in the first comment box. And the other point Tim is also making is it just helps with longevity. I mean, that post has been there 2 days, but people are still connecting with it. So what about this first comment box thing? Is that better than...
I'm personally anti it.
Oh.
Better to put it in the actual post because that's what you're actually communicating with people, and that's what people will always see. They won't always necessarily see the comments. So if you're making it harder for them to find the link, you're not prioritizing your audience. I think John Esperon did do some research on it a while ago where he looked at posts where he put the link in the comment and link in the post and saw very little difference. It may well change over time, but to me, what doesn't change is doing the right things for your audience. And if you try and play to an algorithm which is constantly changing anyway, then you can lose track of what's really important, which is providing the right experience for your users.
Excellent. No, thank you. And opportunity for about 1 or 2 more shorter questions, or anyone else like to ask Caroline something while she's on?
Just to mention that Tim's also just put in the chat, there's a feature about pinning a comment. So if you want to prioritize a comment, you can pin it to the top.
Yes.
Matthew, you might want to go through your 82 comments and pin one at the top.
Excellent. I'll
pin yours. On your company page, you can pin one of your posts to the top. So if there's one that's particularly been interesting for people, or that's particularly kind of on brand as such, you can pin that to the top so people will always see that first. And LinkedIn will always prioritize comments and posts and everything by what they call relevance, which is most likely to be it's not always recency, if that makes sense. So you can think and see something and go, well, someone commented last week, why is it showing me that comment again now? Because it's not always sorted by recency, it's usually relevance. So there is a little drop down box where you can change it, and that's always quite useful.
Yeah, no, thanks, Caroline. And various people have said that they're going to go off and sort their profiles out after this.
Well done.
Vicky and I ran a session, I don't know, a couple of years ago, wasn't it, Vicky? And people did the same. I did point out that in that room, there was someone who had a grey face because they hadn't got a photograph. There was someone who had spelt their company name wrong. And, just those little things that are important, or got the apostrophe in the wrong place, Vicky. And so all those things
are back to the thing about impressions, isn't it? And also about measurements, the thing about, it's very unlikely someone will pick up the phone tomorrow morning and say, I saw your LinkedIn post last night and I've decided to phone you. That's very unlikely to happen. It's like any form of marketing, it's very difficult to measure. I happened to pick up your business card today and decided I was going to phone you. But what you are doing is building those positive associations with that person. So even if actually they met you on the New Forest business hour, and then they went and checked out your LinkedIn profile, and then they picked up the phone because it was so useful and engaging and interesting, it's had an influence. So going back to Heidi's thing about measurement, it's not always necessarily just about what you see on the platform. It can be building a much bigger picture.
Perfect. Thanks, Caroline. What a great way to sum it up. I'm sure Caroline will be back at some point, and we will pick out some of those specifics, and perhaps